would you solve this issue?
Solve the
Issue
problem
of men finding
Oh man, this
valuable
is
wives.
Yeah. Let's
this is
hear your,
this is pretty this is pretty complex. Okay,
Yeah.
so
our adaptation is kind of like for today's day and age. If you're not
Yeah.
like a religious guy, but what's your
so backing it off, not gonna let you guys get away totally with this, so I'm bringing it back.
Okay, sure.
It's not a diversion, but I'm bringing it back. Okay,
sure.
So from a secular perspective, it can't be fixed. From a secular perspective, it can't be fixed.
Sure.
Secularists have no moral foundation at all. Like it or not, they don't. And it really can't be fixed. However, what I can point to is this. Let's assume for a second hypergamy is real, right? I assume that it is.
Okay.
I think
agree.
generally speaking, there's enough evidence that we can look at and we can say hypergamy is at least it's real enough.
Yeah.
Right? It's real enough.
Agreed.
It used to be under control. It used to be under control.
Yeah. Religion used to put under
Like
control.
it or not, we had that shit under control and under lock and key.
Religion, shame, families, fathers, all these things used to combat it.
Yeah. Secularism destroyed all that.
I agree.
And so
I agree.
When I say to people, and I understand the argument, we're never going back to that, but we are going to go back to that, and I'm going to explain how. It's not going to be in our generation, but if you look at the birth rates, the global birth rates, they're in massive, rapid decline, and it's a problem most people have no idea about yet, how bad the population collapse is really going to be.
It's very bad, especially the Western countries.
But you know these stats. What age are women on average now getting married?
Into their late 20s, 30s now.
30 is the average age, right?
Yeah.
I think it's 31 is the average age last time I looked. How many kids are you going to have as a 31-year-old woman?
Very few.
Very few.
Yeah.
Well, these women are becoming quicker and quicker genetic dead ends, but so are secularists in general. If you look at the religious reproduce far and away more than secularists reproduce. Cross-generationally, this is going to become worse and worse and worse. As people leave the Protestant churches, they're moving towards Catholicism, Orthodoxy, more traditional churches. There's big pushes in those churches to have families and to have children and to reproduce. You know, the old, adage for Catholics, right? You know, if you don't have 10 kids, you have no kids, right? Reproduction is the future.
Yeah.
The religious reproduce, and secularists are not reproducing.
That's why London has been taken over by Muslims.
That's right. That's right. And if you look at, I'll only touch on this very briefly, but even if you look at Israel, Israel is the only westernized nation that has a reproduction rate that is stable. It's actually over what is necessary because they took one look at it and went, okay, we got to get these numbers up. How are we going to do that? So they implemented an in vitro fertilization program for free for the entire nation.
Really?
Yeah, for the whole nation. An in vitro fertilization. You can go have it done 12 times and they'll pay for everything.
Interesting.
In order to keep those numbers up. Because they look around, they're like, we're surrounded by, everybody, right?
Yeah, it makes sense why they would do it.
We better have a future army, right? We better have a future army. Yeah. But the West has not rang the alarm bells just yet. They're just now talking about it in Congress.
Yeah.
But then what's another side effect of that? Your domestic population is not reproducing. How do you keep the number at 330 million? There's only one way to do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be with immigration coming in.
Yeah.
And well, that creates instability all on its own. And then what happens if you start pulling in immigrants from other nations and they have a reproduction crisis?
Yeah.
Right. So if you look at all the downsides of a coming population collapse, you can see that religion's going to make a pretty heavy comeback. And you see it already being fought about now. Secular ethics can't offer people anything. It can offer them only hedonism, but ultimately it can't give people purpose. It just says, go find your own purpose. But what the hell does that mean? That doesn't help anybody. How does that help people to tell them, well, just go find your own purpose? Like, well, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to find purpose, right? That's what I came to church for, is to find purpose.
Yeah.
Secularists can't provide that.
So I agree with you, Andrew. I think in the future, things will change. However, right now, what do you do?
Well, so right now, you should try. I mean, this is me again. If I look at the historic trends, most men were never able to reproduce anyway. Okay. Some 60, 70%.
Yeah.
They were never able to reproduce.
Only a minority.
Ever. That's why we have double the female ancestors to male ancestors, right? I would still say that the best thing that you can do is to try to live an integrity-filled life, and that at the end of that life, regardless of how it went, right? Maybe you didn't get that hedonistic pleasure that you wanted, but neither did your ancestors. They didn't get that either. And I think hypergamy has always been this thing, this issue, and that women have been this way. We have Helen of Troy to look at. We have Samson and Delilah to look at. We know that this is the nature of women.
Yeah.
But we also know that most men were never able to reproduce.
Yeah.
Ever. And most of the women that we have right now, if we have men going out and turning out hoes, if we have them going out and turning out hoes, doesn't that hurt the future men? You know what I mean? Who want to get lay down and marry these women if we're going out and turning them out? That seems like it's counterproductive to me.
I see your perspective.
I could also argue though, they've already been turned out. like no, they're already there. They already made.
Yeah, well, I mean, there had to be a ground zero. There was a ground zero penis somewhere.
Remember, you mentioned feminism and culture.